tell when you were here or here. It's just, you do the best you can, but in that case I say, unless you're seeing this dark oil, don't be spraying. And be saying, you know what, it would help a whole lot if we could get a helicopter out here. This is semi-streamers. By that it means that this is probably as it's beginning to break up. Here we've got the original streamer of oil, which came from the big patch. Then it starts breaking up a little further, and we get multiple streamers. Then they break up further, and pretty soon we get semi-streamers. Some people would even call this no structural form. It's just kind of oil all over the place. To be spraying that from a boat, I guess I'd be asking the helicopter to put me into the heaviest part of it, and then you do the best you can. You can't be turning your spray on and off, on and off, on and off, on and off all the time, and that's what you probably have to be doing in this. But unfortunately, you got a lot of this out there. Streamer, silvery sheen. So this is a streamer right across here, but we didn't spray this because it wasn't worth spraying. This is a big area, a huge area, acres and acres of oil, but there probably isn't more than a couple of gallons of oil in the whole thing. So don't waste it. Don't waste it on silvery sheen. Now here's little semi-streamers. I said they might call them no structure. Okay, this one's no structure. It hasn't really broken into semi-streamers. It's not really a patch because it's not one continuous patch of oil. It's got holes in it, if you will. Transitional dark to metallic. So if you took this whole thing, there's a lot of oil in there. And if I were spraying that in a boat, I'd probably just keep spraying. It's not worth it. There's enough dark oil there to be spraying all the time, and not enough to be trying to turn your spray nozzles on and off. Okay? So again, what they'll call it is no structure. What it looks like is transitional dark to metallic. Dark meaning dark oil to metallic sheen. Here's a patch, one continuous patch of oil. This isn't a huge patch. This is actually two discrete patches, and in fact, this for the most part is not oil. What we had down there was a lot of sargasso weed, just seaweed that would bundle up in patches, just like the oil itself. And you could get people directing you to be spraying this because it looks like a big patch of emulsified oil. It's not. It's seaweed. Or, you know, the detritus of seaweed. Now the thing that can get tricky on it, it's probably hard to see up there. See this shadow right here sheening off of it? That could be because this is mixed up with a little bit of actual oil in there, and that oil is sheening off. But some seaweeds actually give off their own oil. You know, you get oil off of plants. Well, seaweed is a plant. It's got oil in it. So you get enough of it in a big patch, it'll actually be sheening oil off. And a person that's not used to seeing that might say, whoa, there's a big patch over there, and it's oil and the sheen, don't spray the sheen, but look at the oil. Well, when you get on scene and you're actually in there on the boat, when you're that close, the advantage you got in the boat over the helicopters, you can actually dip it. Or just look at it and you can say, no guys, that's not oil, that's sargasso weed. Looks like oil, but it's not oil. These are pancakes, and pancakes are hard to see on this. What I've got here is, oh boy, it's almost impossible. You see that little pancake oil there? That's what we were, that's this. So this is what we're looking at from about 100, 500 feet up. And as we're leaving the area, I'm shooting back on it. And now that pancake looks like that, and there's a little pancake behind it. Now what you see out here that look like patches of oil, you can get people chasing you out after that. That's just a cloud patch. And again, you won't see that from a boat. You won't see that. But from up in a plane, if you're not used to looking at oil, you might think that's oil. But it's just
Actually, these pictures are from the Gulf of Mexico.
yeah, I took these pictures myself in the Gulf of Mexico because I was up there day after day.
2010,
Pardon?
2010, 2010.
Yeah. So all of these pictures. Yeah, I've seen plenty of it. Now here's another thing you get. Here's our pancake. The little pancake behind it. See the sheen that's coming off of it? That's actually oil. But in this case, it's not sprayable because one, it's not pancake oil, it's seaweed. And two, the seaweed sheen is certainly something we wouldn't want to spray. And these cloud patches over here, we wouldn't want to spray. So there's nothing in this picture that's worth spraying, even though it may look that way. Here's a tadpole parade in a convergence zone. We didn't talk about convergence zones. Again, there's something hard to see from a boat. They're easy to see from the air, and you might get directed to one because they tend to show up day after day. Convergence zone is an area where you got two different bodies of water that collide, and where they collide, you tend to get a debris line. Well, oil in the water is a debris.
We have that on the East Coast.
You do?
Yeah.
Then you know what I'm talking about. I'll tell you right now, you could be getting a lot of oil collecting along those convergence zones. And they usually happen where you've got shallow water that all of a sudden drops off deep. And on an ebb tide, that water is moving fast across the shallow water, gets to the deep water, and it slows down. So now you got two different speeds of oil, fast water bumping into slow water. All the stuff that's floating on the surface is trapped along there. The other thing is where you got silky, muddy, fresh water bumping into salt water. That's what you got. You got a convergence zone. So you can, if you know where those are, you can almost expect to find oil there. And if it's a long, ongoing spill, you can almost expect to find it there daily.
So you can use that to your advantage.
On that, if there's fresh dark oil, I'd spray it to get rid of the oil. You can't do anything about the oily garbage. If it is just an oil sheen and a lot of debris, I wouldn't spray it. For this reason. Again, it gets back to you only have a very small amount of this dispersion. That convergence zone lends itself to skimming by mechanical means. Unless there's heavy oil in it, I wouldn't waste my time on it. But you might find heavy oil in it. I just can't tell you won't. But at least you know what a convergence zone is. So if you get a call, hey, there's a convergence zone 10 miles off to your west, looks like a lot of oil in it, you know what you're going to be looking for. And you probably know from past experience exactly where to be in it. There's a convergence zone on a drop-off. This is where this is off the mouth of the Mississippi, and it wasn't the Mississippi saltwater meeting, it was where the shallow beach dropped down deep. And every day on the ebb tide, we get this convergence zone. Now this is just sea foam, pretty clean. Some days we have a lot of oil there, other days we wouldn't. Now here is a streamer and a convergence zone. What's happening here is we have the wind pushing this streamer into this convergence zone. And you can see how this is just a light sheen. This is not worth spraying, it's a sheen. But here you can actually see some collected oil. However, as I look at it, it's got that chalky milk chocolate. It's not a dark color. It's not fresh oil. So even though there's a fair amount of it along that patch, probably not worth wasting your dispersant on. Here's the convergence zone between the Mississippi water and the Gulf waters. This is your Orinoco River and your Caribbean waters, okay? This is probably what it looks like in your convergence zone. would be right along there. And as the river changes, you know, day to night, high flow, low flow, this will move, but it's generally going to be in that area. This is a sediment plume. Now, again, this is probably too close to the beach to be worrying about dispersing. But again, it's the sort of thing that a lot of people will see from the air, and they'll be telling you, oh, there's a big patch of oil right next to the beach. Well, there may or may not be. One, you probably aren't going to be spraying next to the beach. Two, there's a good likelihood that it's going to be something like this. Here's a situation that might happen offshore. And another reason for not spraying sheens of oil, a lot of times, this plane, and it's hard to see the plane on this, but in this slide, if you're up here looking at my screen, there's an airplane right here. Here's the leading edge of that spill, and it's moving this way. Now, the heaviest oil is always along that leading edge. We thought there was enough oil on that leading edge to make it worth spraying. Here's another advantage of boat over plane. When you take off on a plane with a big heavy load of dispersant, and it's about all that plane can do to lift it off, once you've lifted it off, if you're near maximum takeoff weight for that airplane, you got to get rid of that dispersant before you come back down, unless you want your landing gear to come up through the wings. So we were in that situation of, guys, we got to get rid of this load. Where can we find some heavy oil? Well, we were hoping that this oil would be heavy enough along here to spray. This sheen back here we knew wasn't. So we sprayed along there, then we came down lower to see what's happening, and here it looks like, wow, he's really killing that oil. He's not. What he's doing, it's an effect called surface erosion. And if you got a very